It started with a death. Not just any death. It was the death of Thomas Ellsworth, a powerful real estate mogul, decorated war veteran, and father of three. When the news of his passing broke, the entire city paused. Headlines mourned him. Cameras flashed at the mansion gates. His name echoed in hushed tones in boardrooms, courtroom hallways, and city council chambers. He was a titan, a legend. But behind the velvet curtains of wealth and legacy, a storm was brewing. Because Thomas hadn't just left behind memories or buildings bearing his name. He left behind a fortune, and it was massive. $47 million, a sprawling estate, multiple businesses, trust funds, properties overseas, and, most painfully, unresolved secrets. Jordan Malone was used to strange phone calls. As a 40-year-old former military strategist turned financial crisis consultant, he had helped people untangle some of the ugliest financial disasters in America. But this call from Olivia Ellsworth, the youngest daughter of Thomas, shook him. Her voice cracked. She was crying. "Jordan," she whispered, broken and breathless, "I think I've made a terrible mistake." Jordan's tone dropped to that calm, grounded register that had saved lives before. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." Olivia had been in a haze after the funeral, sleep-deprived, sedated, and surrounded by lawyers and half-siblings with cold smiles. Russell Crane, the family attorney, handed her a stack of documents and said, "Just formalities, Olivia. You're entitled to your share. We just need signatures to make it official." She signed, but she didn't read. She didn't ask questions. She trusted the name. That trust cost her everything. 2 weeks later, her account showed nothing. Her stake in the family trust had been legally reassigned. Her rights had been relinquished. All $15.7 million gone. Jordan's military instincts kicked in. This wasn't just shady paperwork. This was a coordinated hit. He drove 12 straight hours to Olivia's penthouse in upstate New York. The place was sterile, cold, almost like a museum. Massive windows, silence, and a portrait of Thomas Ellsworth looming over the fireplace like a ghost with unfinished business. "We weren't close," Olivia admitted, curled up on the couch with a blanket and red-rimmed eyes. "But I never thought they'd do this to me." "Who's they?" Jordan asked. "Jackson, Elijah, Russell, maybe even my dad." Jordan didn't flinch. "Let me see everything. Emails, voicemails, the trust documents." There was a problem. Olivia didn't have any originals. She had signed digital forms, rushed through electronic signature platforms under pressure, with Russell assuring her copies would be mailed, but none ever arrived. The deeper Jordan looked, the darker it became. Jackson and Elijah hadn't just inherited their share. They had positioned themselves as co-executors of the estate, and the document Olivia signed? It was buried inside a larger declaration that waived her rights to contest the will. It was a trap. Jordan hired a digital forensics team and a private investigator named Mac. Mac was an ex-cop with a bad knee and worse attitude, but he had a nose for blood and paper trails. What they uncovered was horrifying. The will had been altered. Thomas Ellsworth had drafted a new version of his will 2 weeks before his death, but that document never made it into the courts. The one on file was older, cleaner, and heavily skewed in favor of Jackson and Elijah. And here's the kicker. Thomas was in a coma during the week the so-called new will was signed. "We're looking at full-blown fraud," Max said, tossing a file on the table. "Forgery, witness tampering, maybe even elder abuse." Olivia couldn't stop shaking. "I don't care about the money," she whispered. "I just want the truth." Jordan looked at her, jaw clenched. "You're gonna get both." He didn't go to the police, not yet. He needed leverage, so he did what he did best. He made a plan. They started with the media, but not just any media. Jordan reached out to an investigative journalist named Layla Grayson, who ran a digital news channel with millions of viewers. She'd taken down senators, corporate giants, and financial predators. She didn't play by the rules. When she sat down with Olivia, everything changed. The interview dropped at 9 in the morning on a Monday. By noon, it had 1 million views. By evening, the Ellsworth name was trending for all the wrong reasons. And then the anonymous tips started pouring in. Former staff members, housekeepers, drivers, gardeners, all with stories about how Thomas had started losing his memory, how Russell Crane had suddenly been around all the time, how Jackson once shouted at his father over cutting him out. Jordan sifted through every lead, every scrap of data. His team worked around the clock. Then finally, they hit gold. A nurse, a hospice nurse named Teresa. She had a voice recording, Thomas Ellsworth, barely audible, whispering into a phone. "Russell, this isn't what I wanted. The will, change it back. Olivia, she deserves." It wasn't definitive, but it was something, enough to file a motion. They went public, and they went loud. A press conference. Olivia, Jordan, Layla. The audio recording played across the speakers. Reporters cried. Viewers online were outraged. Under pressure, the probate court agreed to reopen the case. A handwriting expert reviewed the signatures. 2 came back flagged, not consistent with previous legal documents. And then a miracle happened. An attorney in Nevada contacted Jordan. He had once worked with Russell Crane. They had a falling out over forged documents. He had copies, originals, dated and stamped and clean. The truth came crashing down. Criminal charges were filed. Russell disappeared. Jackson and Elijah were placed under investigation. The assets were frozen. And Olivia? She was offered full reinstatement of her inheritance. She turned it down. Instead, she requested a redistribution of the estate. 1/3 to her, 1/3 to a financial education nonprofit, and 1/3 into a scholarship trust in her father's name. She created the Ellsworth Foundation for Financial Truth, with Jordan at her side as senior advisor. At the launch event, hundreds gathered. Jordan stood in the back, arms crossed. He didn't like crowds. He liked results. Olivia stepped to the microphone. "My father built an empire, but he didn't build trust. That's what I'm doing now. This foundation isn't just about money. It's about redemption. It's about truth. It's about protecting people from the lies that look like signatures and the betrayal that comes wearing family ties." Thunderous applause. Jordan nodded slowly, and then his phone buzzed. Another case, another lie to untangle, another life to rebuild. He walked out quietly into the cold night, ready for the next battle. Because the world was full of financial war zones, and Jordan Malone was a soldier who never put down his armor.